In order to begin this process, we have to talk about curriculum development. This is a term that the textbook wants you to learn, that the state wants you to learn. It's a part of those standards we've been talking about. So, when understanding what we mean by curriculum development, I think there's two words that really explain what this is: scope and sequence. If you look here in this yellow box, the scope is the extent of the area or subject matter which is relevant. So, the scope is kind of how deep and what you're teaching and how deep you need to go and what you actually need to teach around the topic. The next word is sequence. That's the order in which a subject matter is taught. For example, sequence is extremely important in a subject like math or science, where you might have to know some ideas before you can move on to the others. For example, you can't do algebra if you can't multiply. So the sequence would be review multiplication, addition, subtraction, basic calculation, then get into solving for X and solving basic algebra problems. That's the best I could do with the math analogy. Same thing. A kid can't run if they can't walk. So making sure they walk well and are balanced while they're walking would be the step before running or jogging even, then running, then sprinting. I shouldn't go over, in English, I can't go over understanding themes if I don't know if students have understood what they've read. So first we start with summary and understanding what you read and being able to re-say that in your own words. And then we move on to deeper concepts like analysis with theme and literary elements. So a lot of things in this blue box, a lot of things impact curriculum development. We wish it could be just straightforward based on what teachers know, based on assessments, but there are a lot of political and environmental and developmental issues that impact curriculum development. So standards. There are standards that have been assigned by the state, by sometimes national organizations that determine what we teach. Sometimes these are even determined by people who have no teaching experience. Then you have school schedules. How I teach and how I can present curriculum is completely dependent on school schedules. How many periods are there? How long are the periods? If I'm a science teacher and I need to be doing labs, I might need a longer block of period. I might be able to do less lab work if I have shorter class periods. Student characteristics. Every class is different. There are certain classes I can push further and harder, and there are certain classes that need more scaffolding and building. Instructional units. Sometimes districts and schools prescribe certain units that have to happen at certain times. For example, in English, the first quarter is supposed to be informational text. So you're supposed to go over how to write informational writing. Teacher characteristics. There are certain things about the teacher that impact what I can teach and when I can teach it. Maybe I know that in November, I'm exhausted. In November, there's a lot going on inside and outside of school. And in November, we have a lot of days off. So I might have to re-look at what I was planning on teaching if it's something that needs a lot of intent focus. I'm not going to be focused. Students aren't going to be focused. There's a lot of days off school. That might impact what I teach. The district, my department that I teach in, or the school might have specific directives of what I need to teach or how I need to teach it. All of those things factor in curriculum development and what I'm going to teach and when I'm going to teach it. Also, political. Let's go to the red. Political initiatives influence curriculum development as well as educational trends and initiatives. For example, right now, and I would say in the last 15 years, curriculum must be standards-based. That wasn't always the case. Teachers used to teach what was the vibe, what was the feeling, kind of what they wanted to teach. As long as students were reading and writing, it was okay. That was quite common, especially in the 90s in education. However, we've moved towards here are standards that students need to reach. This is what they can do. Remember, standards are what students can do, and they're a measure of what students can do. So now curriculum must be standards-based. We have to tie our curriculum to the standards. And even further, there is a push for skills based standards over content. It's more important that you can write in history, that you necessarily remember the dates and times, or that you understand themes in history rather than, and you can identify themes in historical events rather than specific pieces of information that teachers have held onto. So that's curriculum development in a nutshell. It's what to teach, when to teach it, and it is heavily impacted by politics, environment, and a number of factors. There's a balance. It's an age-old question of what came first, the chicken or the egg. See the cute little chicken, cute little egg? The content or the standards? We know that for the most part, content was taught heavily earlier and that standards came a little bit later, and then we started aligning to the standards. But there is a current balance that happens in teaching. So content is what is the subject, skill, or topic to teach. Do the standards support the content or the content the standards? That's that balance in that chicken and egg. Looking at the standards, the blue box, what a teacher is held accountable to, and what students are expected to prove knowledge in order to earn credit, what grades should be tied to. So standards really honestly are more important in the sense that that's what teachers are held accountable to, that's what your tests are aligned to, that's what shows student performance, that's what we're supposed to base what you get credit on. However, I also have to teach content often to get you to the skill. So there's this interesting chicken and egg situation. So let's look at our situation for this particular assignment. You've been given the content first. This will happen sometimes as a teacher. Sometimes I walk into a department and they say, here is your curriculum map. This is what you're going to teach and when you're going to teach it. That means I've been given my content first, and I have to backwards plan and look at what standards fit that content. Sometimes I'm given nothing. When I started teaching, I was literally walked to my classroom. I was given a list of books and said, good luck. I had to figure out the content and the standards all by myself, which will often happen. In those situations, you're better off looking at the standards, breaking them up over the course of the year, and then building in the content to fit those standards and what fits those standards. We're going to look at this a little bit in the reverse, because in this situation, you've been given a time period. For example, this lesson I did uses the 70s in education. Now I have to go and figure out what standards fit. And that is the first place you need to go as a student on this project. What standards will fit your particular content you're teaching? So in the next video, we're going to go to those standards and we're going to see what might apply. And I'm going to give you some sections that you can look at.